All right, so here's the truth about diet. We as humans, and pretty much every other animal on the planet, has spent most of their time, when it's time to eat, they spend most of their time just trying to figure out how to fill their belly up. And they haven't been concerned about all the other intricacies and pieces and densities and chemicals that go into food to make up a healthy diet. Which brings me to the point that there are certain diets that people are entertained and they think it's the thing. You have vegetarianism, which has its place, and you have veganism, which has its place, and you have the keto diet and the paleo diet and the caveman diet and all these different diets. But the truth about humans is this, that the ideal diet for humans is that of the seasons. And if something was available, they would consume it. And they learned through trial and error that certain foods would kill them and certain foods would not. And so they learned to avoid those different things. And people still ate crap and still died, and they kept testing and trying. But is that not the same thing that we are doing today? Is we are putting crap into our bodies, trying it and testing it. And really, the trial and error was basically somebody would put something in their mouth trying to fill their belly. And if it made them feel like crap, then they wouldn't eat it anymore. But if it didn't make them feel like crap, then they would probably eat it again. And that's the thing about food today, is that we eat crap. And even though it doesn't make us feel bad or good immediately, it's not doing our body good, because now we know the nutrients and devoid foods, how they affect our bodies. But historically, humans would eat the foods that were available to keep from being hungry. And so there is a place, and the truth is that humans were seasonal, and they stopped being so seasonal when they learned to farm, and they stopped being seasonal when they learned to ranch, and they stopped being seasonal when we learned to store foods. And I'm not saying any of those are a bad thing, because it prevents hunger, which is super smart. But humans evolved through time, filling up their belly with the foods that were available. And even though you were a farmer and a rancher and a learn how to store person, you would still run out of food. And when you did, you would have to figure out what you could fill your belly with. So here's the truth about diet, is humans are not made to be paleo, keto, vegan, vegetarian, or any of these other diets. We're made to be all of them. And that's the seasonal component of it. And historically, through time, humans would eat plants primarily in the summertime when they were available. Humans would primarily eat meat anytime it was accessible, or when it was in winter, because that's all that was available. So we would have primarily a meat diet, unless we had some sort of a storage system, which you can look back in the history of man, and there's all these different ways people would learn to preserve foods and use them later. But there was periods of time, and they didn't call it veganism or vegetarianism or keto or whatever. It was just what was available. And if you put all the dots together, the diet is actually the best sustainable diet. It's the cleanest diet if it's nutritious and nutrient dense foods, or natural foods, not some of these processed bull crap. But So that's the ideal diet. We eat leafy greens in the spring. We eat fruits and vegetables in the summer and the fall. We eat whatever we have stored in the wintertime. And then there's deep winter when, if we don't have anything stored or available to us, we have to go out to find something, which oftentimes was only meat. And so therefore, we would spend a handful of months every year primarily eating meat. And we would spend a handful of months primarily every year eating plants. Now here's the deal with plants. Plants are getting kind of a bad rap. There's a little bit of a trend going on where the caveman diet and the keto diet is the thing. And if you're not living by that, then you're doing yourself harm. But there's a thing called hormesis. And hormesis is the ability to take noxious stimulus in small doses and become stronger by exposing yourself to that. Perfect example is exercise. How do we get stronger? Small doses of a noxious movement that stimulates growth. And it goes with foods too. There's the people are saying, don't eat broccoli, don't eat kale. The fact is you don't eat it in large quantities because it is harmful. They do have chemicals in them that are made to prevent people from eating them or animals from eating them. And those chemicals are noxious. But in small doses, they're actually the chemicals that actually make us grow stronger. And so if we were to be living a seasonal diet and taking plants in small doses, and it's never the same plant over and over and over, we're not having gigantic fields of kale, because you'd have to eat a lot of kale to have the nutrient density that you need. You have to eat a lot of spinach or a lot of broccoli, and we just naturally, that's not what we would have done. And in addition to that, that's too much of the chemicals in there, and so it would create a reaction, whether it was inflammatory or make us sick or whatever. So really, the least noxious food that we can eat is grass finished organic natural meats. Those meats are the ones that create the least amount of problem in our system. We could eat them more often, but there is an upper limit of those as well. And that upper limit causes problems. If we eat meat all the time, we know that there are certain things that happen in our bodies and reactions and acids and all kinds of things that happen. We have to have a balance of all of it. And so, just like exercise, having small doses of noxious stimuli is what the human body needs to thrive. We are not vegetarian and we are not carnivore. We are both. And that is the seasonal lifestyle. And if somebody has some evidence to say against that, I would love to hear it. So let me know what you guys think about that idea, that concept. But I think it's so true, and we've picked out the thing. It's like the saying goes, when you have a hammer, then everything becomes a nail. And so we find these little bits of truth and we hold on to them and we think it's the only truth. As vegetarianism is like, yeah, there's a ton of nutrients in plants, and there's a ton of chemicals and antioxidants and all these things that we need. So that must be the way, right? No. And then there's the carnivore diet, where meat has the omegas and all the things that we need to thrive and survive. And so that's the thing, right? But it's not. It's all of it. It's put it together and having it in small doses, and not consistently either. It's seasonal. It's having seasons where you're eating more plants and seasons where you're eating more meat. And what that does is it creates periods of time where you don't have those other things, and your body can adapt into and out of. And so it's the variety and the change that's happening that's That's what helps us as humans thrive, is a variety. And that's it. That's the diet. Eat the things in the season. Don't eat a ton of anything. And don't eat processed food. Just eat what's natural.